Hey, everybody. Welcome to Brown Bag Lunch. I'm Dr. John Sherk. It is again Wednesday at 11 o'clock Central. And so we're going to talk again this week about issues of recruiting talent with culture instead of wages, all aspects of owning and operating an air conditioning business. Today, we're going to get a little bit more inside your head. I'd like to talk with you about goal setting for 2022 and the mental side of setting those goals and getting to work on them. And when I say setting goals, I mean those kind of personal goals. Hopefully by now, if you're the kind of owner that kind of sets up the game plan for next year, all of that is already in place. You've approved your budgets and those kind of things. If not, no judgments. But what I'm really talking about are those things where you're challenged personally to do something new or different in order to accomplish that goal. So Carl Jung believes that we actually have a future ideal self that interacts with us day to day now, which sounds kind of mystical. But if you think of it as a figurative ideal version of yourself that interacts with you, and as that interaction happens, it creates interest in things, right? We move in that direction and likely set a goal. However, if that goal involves personal growth, there's a predictable path that happens. The picture you have in your mind of what you want to get done with that goal looks like some version of mastery, or at least proficiency. No one likes being a fool. The problem is the pathway to competency drives straight through Fool Town. And so if you want to learn a new language, if you want to learn new skills or knowledge, if you want to get in shape, if you want to get financially to a place you've not been before, phase one always involves a bit of bumbling and stumbling and falling and getting up. Now, the point is this: the result you want at the end is not produced by the bumbling and stumbling. And you know it, you can feel it, and you have this inner dissonance that feels like what I'm doing now is not going to get me there, right? But you have to go through a phase of bumbling and stumbling to learn something new, or to develop a new skill, or to go someplace you haven't gone before. Now, this creates a kind of field test. And the field is how you talk to yourself about this bumbling and stumbling. It is always unclear whether the bumbling and stumbling is your fault or caused by something outside you, like how your parents raised you. But either way, now you are where you are. So in the midst of this bumbling and stumbling, there will be a voice. And maybe it's really your ideal future self, maybe not, but there for sure is a voice in your head commenting back to you on how you were doing. Let's call it an inner coach or an inner wise guide. Now, here's the odd thing. That voice exists on autopilot all the time. Even if you're not consciously listening to it, it is speaking on autopilot all the time. But it can also be operated by you if you take hold of it. Okay. So psychologically, the autopilot voice is a composite of all the voices we heard spoken to us as a child. As an adult, it's whatever we decide it's going to be. Whatever we decide it needs to say, it'll say. So some people are absolutely tortured by this voice. And some of you will identify with what I'm about to say. It says things to you, which you say things to yourself about yourself that are so harsh and so horrible that you would feel utterly ashamed if you ever said them out loud to another person. It's very common. Alternatively, some people achieve great things, but they never feel any peace about it because it comes from a voice that threatens them with the horrific shame of admitting weakness. As I'm sure you can imagine, the content and tone of that voice when you bumble and stumble has significant impact on whether you forge ahead or whether you give up. So this is where we find ourselves in this space, regardless of prior success or failure. So what do I do about it? So if that voice has been mostly on autopilot, the first thing to do is find ways to keep reminding yourself that it is speaking to you almost all the time. Put up little Post-it notes that say, what is it saying now? Put alarms on your phone that remind you to stop and listen. Something that you can be not thinking about this stuff and something reminds you and you say, what is it right now I'm saying to myself about myself and about what I'm doing? Now, look, when you do this, part of you will stop and go, John, I'm just talking to myself. And that is true. Just keep imagining, though, that you're holding two sides of a conversation. There's the you side, and then there's this outside perspective side. Okay? Now, think of that voice as a second and separate objective you that is there to coach you and give you the feedback of a wise guide, not a harsh critic, but also not pure comfort and praise either. It should say things to you like, you're awfully stressed right now. You'll probably be more productive if you take a little walk. Or things like, that person always disappoints you, but you never bring it up with them. You should bring it up with them. And things like, you're bumbling and stumbling right now, but this is only a phase. It will pass if you don't give up. That voice is providing commentary back to you about what in the moment, what you're doing and how it's going. Okay. So, and keep in mind, if you start doing this practice, you'll bumble and stumble doing this also, because it's another new skill. So also keep in mind that this conversation between you and this wise guide, let's call it, which is still you, becomes healthy. When it becomes healthy, this is what we call mental health, pharmacology notwithstanding. Or putting it another way, you're learning to begin to trust yourself. Okay. So at first, you have to learn what that voice is directly on autopilot saying to you. And second, you have to take control of that voice and just imagine you're outside yourself. Imagine you're somebody else, and with a kind of an adult level of love and wisdom, advise yourself, right? Like if you do this from inside only, it's very hard to have perspective on yourself. But it's very possible and not hard to do to just pause. Imagine you're stepping outside of yourself and you're looking at yourself as if you were looking from the perspective of someone else who actually cares about you. And you do this already, probably for other people in your life. It's just a matter of doing this for yourself. So as you begin to develop this conversation, put the role of wanting things and outcomes in life on the you part, and the guidance you in the role of how to get there. Again, you're in charge of the guidance voice. So don't allow things like you're an idiot or you're already perfect to come from that voice. Okay. So as you have this kind of two voices model working for you, that's when you're ready to start setting goals, right? Because if you just use just your inner urge or your no second voice and set goals, you're setting yourself up to give up when the bumbling and stumbling starts, right? And let's face it, I can't believe anybody would be listening to this and not have any idea what I'm talking about. This is a standard human dynamic. It's the human experience, all right? But as you develop this second voice, as you begin to be able to step apart from yourself and advise yourself in return, you get mentally healthier, and you have what you need to make it through the bumbling and stumbling phase of accomplishing something new. All right. Now, people might say, well, why don't I just get like a coach, like a life coach? I encourage anybody to, this isn't really what I do, but I encourage anybody to get a life coach. But you realize you're going to talk to that person, I mean, max like a few times a week. This voice, this feedback voice, this wise guide, you need it with you all the time, right? It doesn't mean you're in that space all the time, but you need it with you, accessible by you all the time, okay? So once you get in that space, some of you may find that it's more difficult than you realize to actually kind of pause and really know with confidence what you even want. That was a struggle for me in my life. I was well into my 30s before I just became aware of the fact that I don't even know what I want. I don't know. I don't know. I was so busy pleasing everybody else, so busy, trying to fit into everybody else's mold. I didn't even know. It took a while to just develop that skill as well. And I bumbled and stumbled doing that as well. Okay. But listen, work on this. And if you have one goal, a reachable goal for 2022, consider, instead of losing 100 pounds or making $1 million, consider just developing this second voice. Because if you have this in your toolbox, you can set any goal and you can get through the bumbling, stumbling stage and actually get there. All right. A little different message today, but it's good for this time of year. It's good for Christmas, good for first of the year goal setting. So I'm Dr. John Sherk. This has been Brown Bag Lunch. If you want to comment, please do below. If you like this, please share it with your friends. And if you want to reach out and have a next level one-on-one conversation about this, please reach out and we'll be happy to do it. Thanks so much and have a great week. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everybody.